So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. This week I wanted to go over a comment that someone requesting the Bowers & Wilkins PX8. And while I was going to pick those up and do the review, I had to be honest with myself about the Bowers & Wilkins like sort of sound signature. It's not something that I generally like personally. I know a lot of people like it. However, for me, it's just not my favorite cup of tea. As I'm spending $800, I need to be a little bit more judicious on and a little bit more critical on what I would pick up and not. I think, but the biggest reason outside the sound signature, because the sound signature sounds fine, like I could live with it. However, it's more about the fit. The ear cups don't generally fit mine. They touch my ears, they squash my ears. They're more of an on-ear fit, as well as they tend to be a little bit heavier than the competition. So while they're built like a premium quality, they look beautiful on head. It's just probably not something that I would do if I'm spending that much money and I wanted to focus more on sound. Because in retrospect, if we look at what people generally recommend, it's going to be the Sonys, the Boses, Sennheisers, or the Apple. And like even for my friends, I'll be like, yo, just pick up the XM5s, pick up the Apple, pick up the Sennheiser if you want a little bit better sound. Like I will tend to go towards those options just because they're safe, they're feature rich, they'll sound good enough for your music, and like they're 350 or less, and you can often get them for like $200 depending on like the promotion or the time of season. So generally easy for most people to get. No one's going to be breaking the bank. No one's going to be upset. But if I'm looking at something that's more audio focused and a little bit more premium at the 800 range, I needed to do a little bit more research to figure out what options are out there because I just haven't done it in a while. So two came into mind in terms of things. I mean, a bunch came into mind, like the Mark Levinson 5909s and all that stuff, but I had to keep in mind of how big those ear cups are and would they accommodate my head and do they have enough pedigree where they're worth the exorbitant fee that I'm about to spend. So the first one we're looking at is this Focal Bathys. And these ones have been raved about with the audiophiles. And, they actually don't have bad ANC according to all the reviews, which is nice because a lot of the times you get a good audiophile headphone and the ANC is trash or it messes up the sound. These ones apparently don't have the issue. We will check if that's true. But yeah, I decided to pick these up. They're like around $800 and they kind of fit the profile of being more sound focused over feature focused. So we're going to try this out for the next few weeks and see how we go. We're starting off with some calls that I have this morning to see how the mic and audio is. So you guys have been listening to me talk to you about this intro and all this other stuff. So tell me how this microphone sound. I'll get back to you guys a little bit more after I tested this. So let's go to meetings.
For work scenarios, the mic held up extremely well and my clients were able to clearly hear me and didn't have any issues with background noise. The tones sounded natural and I came in at a good volume. I also noticed no audio lag when watching videos or playing games, so no mismatch audio issues here. Comfort-wise, I was able to consistently wear these for 8 hours a day between calls, listening to music, or doing trainings. The ear cups were nice and plush after the initial break-in period, and they didn't heat up on me like other closed-back headphones usually do for me. Multi-connect works extremely well and is easy to set up. Just sync up two devices and you'll be able to be simultaneously connected. While it does stay connected to both devices, it's not as seamless as other multi-connect features I've seen in the past, where it automatically switches when a source plays media. For Focal, you have to pause one source before starting on another. Additionally, upon power-up, it does prioritize Apple devices versus other, rather than just prioritizing the last connected device. I still like how quickly you can switch between phone and computer, but it could be more seamless in its switching, as well as allow for more than two connections in a perfect world.
All right, let's test out this ANC a bit. I know it's super dark, but I'm trying to get back into my morning workouts. But let's try this at the gym, see if I can block out a lot of the noise, and see how this performs in different environments.
For the gym, these worked surprisingly well. I was concerned with the clamping force because it was pretty light, but these stayed on my head secure the entire workout. Are these made for working out, or would I do agility drills in these? No. But your lifts and steady state cardio, I don't see any issue with wearing these. Throughout the workout, I never felt like these were hot on my head. I didn't even really feel sweat until I took the headphones off. In fact, using these in the gym probably helped with the break-in period because those ear cups were absorbing a little bit of sweat, and I did notice that throughout the week, these were just getting more and more comfortable. ANC-wise, they were also very surprising. Outside the big boys like Sony, Apple, and Bose, I don't really expect great ANC from over-ear headphones. Those companies have just spoiled us, but Damn, I can't complain about these. I couldn't hear anything outside the occasional person slamming cable machines, but the ANC wasn't stuffy feeling and it didn't affect my music much. It was super comfortable and I loved that I didn't get that cabin pressure feeling or make me woozy. One thing to keep in mind is the music must be playing for you to reap the benefits of the ANC. While it still functions without music, it won't really drown out voices and higher pitched sounds until you hit the 40% mark. It's imperfect, but it's better than I expected from Focal. Let me give you some samples on transparency and ANC to give you a sense of these. So after spending a decent amount of time with these, I feel like I have a good understanding of the comfort and fit of these. So around the top, you do have a leather band, but on the bottom you have cloth, which I always prefer. It's just because it's a little bit better, especially for my bald friends. It's just a little bit more comfortable, but even for me, it doesn't heat up as bad and it just feels a little bit nicer overall for the plushness. Obviously it's clicky in terms of the adjustment. The only thing there is that I'm maxed out on this already. Like, to be comfortable and give myself space, I'm maxed out. I don't feel like I have the biggest head. Do I have the biggest head?
You don't want me to answer that.
She doesn't want to answer that, but I don't have the biggest head. So I would say that this being maxed out for someone who has wider face, it might be a little bit tight, but I was expecting a little bit more adjustability because the big-headed audiophiles out there saying that this is compliant. So maybe it'll still work for y'all, but for me, I'm maxed out and I feel like there could be a little bit more space in there for these. But overall, no clamping pressure issues, nothing like that that would be aggravating. Obviously they swivel, so on your neck, they won't cause any big issues. They swivel a quarter step on the other way around, which is nice because it doesn't get in the way of your chin. Or if you're a little bit wider, it would hug your chin quite nicely. So enough flexibility also for head tilt. So you should have decent articulation that'll give you a good seal. As we talk about the actual materials, again, this is using a lot of metal. There are some plasticky pieces on the outside here for the accents, but overall, I think it's a good build. As we move on to the ear cups themselves, they are leather. They did break in over time. So initially when I took them out of the box, I thought they were plasticky a little bit, but they have kind of become more supple the more I've used them, and especially after that gym day, it was super nice afterwards. Maybe it's because I put some sweat into it or whatever. They got moisturized through that process, but they definitely felt better after, a few wears and really just getting some compression on those ear cups. The best part of these is that they are so deep and they are so wide because of the fact that generally with like the Sony and the Sennheisers, Apple, etc., I have either the option or either the issue of the ear pads being too small, so I can't get my entire ear in it, so it ends up being an on-ear setup, or once they're in there, my ears are pressed against the driver on the inside. For these ones, I don't really have that issue. There's just enough cushion and it has enough resilience where it'll maintain shape for the foam as well as keep it off of my ears, which one, I think is better for sound reproduction, but also just over long-term comfort. I can wear these for a lot longer than some of the other ones because there's less irritation on my ears. So overall, I think comfort-wise, these are great. So as we talk about controls, this is more of a traditional setup with tactile switches and buttons that give you access to all the functions. On your left side, you have one button, super clean, and it's mostly to control all of your ANC and transparency modes. The thing to keep in mind is that inside the application is where you actually set the level of transparency and the level of ANC. So actually, transparency only has one option, and then you have the ANC options, which are silent and soft. The thing that you want to keep in mind there is that this toggle doesn't toggle through all three options. It just does the ANC mode that you've selected in your app. So it's very important that you configure this properly because you're only going to have options to toggle on and off. Now as we get onto the right side, there's so much stuff here. There is the charging port, there is the sync button, there's the switch that gives you on DAC mode or off, and then there's also the Bluetooth connectivity and your playback controls. Those controls for the playback specifically are fine. You use double tap, triple tap for your playback of tracks, and you use up and down for volume. Very standard. The only problem here is when you put it on head, these controls are on the back here, so you have to use your thumb to find it comfortably, but there's not enough protrusion on the middle button for me to get a good feel for it. Initially, I had to get used to it and figure that out, but it's not like some of the other ones where it's very obvious just through tactile feel which one it is, even with gloves. And that's the thing, is like if it's colder outside, it's much harder to discern where that middle section is. While some other headphones that I have, it's just super apparent. So that's just something that's a little bit of quirk of getting used to. In terms of the switch is also very good. It's nice and tactile. That's a little bit easier to find. And the settings are very solid, so you don't really find yourself in the wrong mode. And then you have your assistant button, so a dedicated button for assistant if you want to, use Siri, use Google, use whatever you might want to sort of interact with your phone hands-free. And then you have a couple inputs, which would be your USB-C for charging, but also to access DAC mode. You can use the internal DAC here and get high quality music through that USB connection. And then also you can just use the 3.5, if you want to use analog sources, or if you're plugging it into an amp itself, you can just focus on the 3.5, or if you're in an airplane or something, it's just sometimes you have nice having that function there. And of course, these being audiophile focused, they've given you a ton of options for connectivity. That's basically all you need in terms of controls outside of the application. The Focal Naim app will present you with your headphones once connected via Bluetooth and give you your homepage, including all of your controls. It also has status readouts related to battery and active codecs, which include SPC, AAC, and aptX for standard quality, as well as aptX Adaptive and PCM for higher quality sound. The settings button simply allow you to choose your assistant and toggle standby and sound tones. And then let's move to the most important section, which is the EQ. Here they allow you to choose between 1 of 4 presets to really tune these to your preference. None, which is the standard tuning. Home, which brings down a lot of emphasis in the highs and lows. Loudness, that makes it more V-shaped like most commercial over-ears. And Dynamic, which is tuned towards this Harman target. The classic standard, which aims to simulate how people naturally hear sound. Of course, you can tweak these around with the 5 bands to make your own settings and save your presets. Here's a sample of how these different modes sound.
Going up, busy, so I turn my phone off. I'm crazy and messed up, now I can't talk. And I hate to admit I took you real deep in my lungs, now I can't quit. And you laying next to you got me questioning what I think is important. And oops again, don't know what I've been all I turn to with you.
Up next, you have your ANC modes of transparency, soft, and silent, which, as mentioned before, is important to set what is available in your quick touch button on your headphones. Also keep in mind that this will have a slight effect on your music. As a result, audiophiles tend to prefer the soft setting. To most people, this will be a very subtle change, but Focal does a better job than most at not impeding the music with the use of ANC. Here's a sample of how each affects your music.
Mis manos de tu piel, de pena morirá. Pasearé
Onto sound personalization, this is essentially a manual test asking if you can hear sounds at different frequencies. Based on your responses, it will develop a hearing profile for you that should optimize your headphones. And to provide more granular control of this setting, the intensity of this veil can be adjusted with the above slider. To my ears, the changes are very subtle, but it does seem to fill in the music a little bit more, so maybe it is filling in the gaps where my ears are deficient. I think this is a nice thing to try to see if you like the veil, but it's not as essential as the EQ settings to unlock these headphones. Here's a sample of the difference between standard tuning versus my personal hearing profile. And lastly, you can adjust the LEDs on the ear cups. There are 3 levels that you can select from, but as you can see here, they're still super subtle. So regardless of the level, you won't be annoying anyone, and I think these are really classily implemented. With all that, now you should understand how these are controlled, as well as how you can customize them through the app to make them work for your ears. But we should probably talk about volume because there's some considerations here to think about. For you people that love volume and want to really get some thumping music, this will be fine. Like at 30%, you can still hear your music pretty well, even on transparency mode. So you shouldn't have any volume issues. I'm usually living around 40 to 50% for most of my music, but you know, for some louder tracks like EDM or something like that, you could probably go lower. But they have plenty of range here, so you guys should not be starving for any sort of volume to help you with isolation or to get more detail out of tracks. So yeah, not something to really worry about. The thing to worry about is, you know, external noise. And I'm not saying that like in terms of those come into the headphones, it's more of the fact that these cause a lot of external noise. So people around you may be able to hear you depending on how loud you have it. And I don't really know of a good way to show that to you rather than to give you a good example. And to give you guys a good sense of what I'm talking about by the sound leakage, I'll give you a little sample here. So Samika's reading, and she's gonna tell me if she hears it. So I'm gonna start at 30% with a song. And see if you guys can hear what's going on.
Can't hear it.
50%.
Yeah, I can hear it a little bit.
70%.
It's a cool song.
I can't hear you.
I can hear
100%.
100% clearly. I know exactly what song you're listening to. Oh, it's Spanish.
It's Spanish. So you could hear that perfectly, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is great in terms of like getting good sound. The seal is good, like you won't be able to hear stuff outside. But people from around you will definitely be able to hear, which is, you know, a departure from the other things that we've seen from Sony. So, you know, it's just something to keep in mind if you're an introvert or you care about your surroundings, like at work or something. If you blast these, or even 50%, some people probably hear a little bit. So not the best in terms of external seal, but it's good for your own listening experience. So I want to come back to sound, but hopefully I can be a little bit quick about it because I know I've been talking a lot about this headphone. But we already talked about how this is affected by ANC, how this is affected by personalization, this is affected by EQ. I'm going to talk about this in the most neutral way I can, and that's going to be, you know, no EQ, but at like soft ANC. There is no passive mode. I can't shut everything off. It has to be on. So soft is the closest you're going to get to an equal sort of setting there. But what I will say is that with the quality that this has, it's going to be really determined based off of your sources. So these ones have aptX for your Bluetooth in terms of this highest codec, and then there's also the DAC mode, which will allow you to unlock a lot more. So for most of you people, you're on Spotify, and I will say that you would need that Music Pro add-on, I believe, to get that 24-bit audio that aptX Adaptive offers. So aptX Adaptive gives you 24-bit, I think it's 96 kilohertz. And I think Spotify Music Pro will give you 24-bit 44.1 kilohertz. So you won't quite unlock the maximum potential of this headphone, but you're getting close. And again, you're doing better than most of us who aren't paying for those more premium services. But again, if you are more into the lossless, you can always plug this in for DAC and you'll get up to 192 kilohertz. So if you need something like that, Tidal and Amazon Music Unlimited will give you those options where you can download those lossless tracks. You can download those high sample rate tracks so you can actually understand how well these can reproduce them. I was able to borrow my friend's account or borrow their phone so I could listen to this in ways that I can't with normal Spotify. And it's quite noticeable. It's extremely noticeable about how much better the quality is and how much data is just behind the track. So I think that's really interesting because it behaves much like a wired headphone. What I will say about the sound signature is that it's super balanced. Everything is well separated. Soundstage is all right. I think soundstage is probably where I think it's a closed back, so it's going to be, not going to be the greatest, but it does well for itself when I think of other closed back out there. It's just not the widest I've heard from a closed back, but usually those are from wired headphones that are more expensive than these. But what I will say is that because of the fact that these are so balanced, you can really hear some more aspects of the music, especially for tracks where, commercial headphones can kind of get a little bit fuzzy in areas and voices can get lost. These never have that issue. It's always vocal forward for these, and I can always hear the power of them. Like someone like SZA is not going to have a really big issue, but sometimes she introduced things like harps or xylophones where they don't really play well with certain headphones and they kind of get drowned out. But these ones, it was just very easy to find the different instruments, find where they're coming from and how they're blended in nicely. So I do like when songs are layered and they start bringing in more and more instruments, because this headphone will make that shine really, really well. And another thing with vocals is sometimes vocals aren't, the energy of the song drowns them out. So Fujikaze, he has a few songs there where he starts off really soft and gets really energetic, and certain headphones, it sounds kind of bad because it sounds out of control and his voice gets a little bit washed in there. That never happens with these because they are super well balanced. They're just, nothing is super exaggerated that it would be harsh or sibilant. It's just a pleasant listen that kind of works across all genres and will never really offend you. And I think that's really nice. Especially with something that's a little bit more technical. Let's say you're talking about someone who has ridiculous licks like Polifia. All the enunciations you can hear very well, all the plucks, all the different techniques. They have a nice little tightness to them that really just makes you appreciate it a little bit more. Maybe I'm being a little bit exaggerating there, but that's kind of how I feel from it. It's I think this is great if you want to be a little bit more clinical or a little bit more analytical in your listening compared to something like a Sony or a Bose or something that's in that $300 range that a lot of people buy. But what I want to talk about is giving these to my friends, because I have let a few friends try these, and what I've noticed is that they aren't as impressed with it as me, but I think over the years I've kind of tuned my ears to be a little bit more neutral happy, or appreciate neutral and being able to hear how the original track was kind of mixed. But I think for a lot of my friends, they're used to, those mid-consumer headphones where they're very V-shaped. They're emphasized in the treble and the bass, and, they're a little bit more fun to listen to. They're maybe not be the most analytical listen, but they're very energetic, especially with the music that they listen to. It's just very good representation of what they listen to. But what I will say is that despite them not being super impressed with the dynamics of this, they were impressed by the bass. I think this is what that was what I was really surprised that they keyed in on immediately, was that the bass was super tight. It was super punchy. It didn't wobble. It wasn't fuzzy. It wasn't muddy. It was just very tight, and it was very impactful in the sense that when they went back to their other headphones, they're like, oh, this is night and day different. And I was like, yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you. But that's where they immediately saw that difference in the bass. I think a lot of things, especially with Sony, things just get muddy on that low end. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't, you feel it, but it's not a good feeling. It's a little sick feeling. Sennheiser does a little bit better about that. But it's just headphones in that range kind of tend to blow out and make that bass end messy, and I don't like that. And I love the fact that the Bathys represent that a lot better. Anyway, what I will say is I will give you guys some samples here. I'm going to do my best to find tracks for you, but I'm going to get demonetized if I use anything from Tidal. So what I'm going to do is just bring up some Artlist tracks. I'll just give you a couple different genres and hopefully get the best of it. It's probably going to be really subtle when we're talking DAC versus like Bluetooth, but I will say that it is noticeable, like I said before, if you have those tracks. Hopefully it'll shine through these. I'm pretty sure it won't, but have a listen.
Make me work, make me sweat inside, make me feel like I'm alive. Take this hurt, lady, throw it in my face. Don't let these bones slow you down, 'cause I'm coming up strong. The grass should have looked greener. I need a true believer in disguise. If I'm loving you wrong, short changing and receiving, girl, you best believe me behind, 'cause I'm over easy tonight. State the truth, spit it out, I'm waiting, don't leave it. If you do a favor, just stay with me. I don't usually need nobody, but lately I've been on my own too long and deep, baby. Deep inside, I need your company. I need your energy, please. I can't hide it. A first class seat, a fly private. The last time I let you go and I regret it, baby. So drop your pen and I'm headed the way you're headed. I need you, same way your body need a heartbeat, ya. Same way you gotta sneak to Arby's. Honestly, if I be honest, I want you. If you do a favor, just stay with me. I don't usually need nobody, but lately I've been on my own too long and deep, baby. Deep inside, I need your.
So I was trying to come into this review hella cynical because I wanted to make sure I was being extremely critical of these and making sure that these made sense to me. Because these are 2.5 times more than a mid-market Bose and Sony ANC guy. That's $800. That's a lot of money to drop on something that's not wired. And as most audiophile people would say, it's not going to be a good bang for your buck in comparison to some of those things you could pick up that are wired. However, as much as I like sound, I also need ANC because I travel a decent amount. I need some kind of convenience to have wireless at times. So I was just looking for something that would perform somewhat well on the features of like a Sony and Bose, but also have much better sound than them because I wanted something to really reflect my music a little bit better. And I think, you know, being older, I appreciate that more. I don't need the best ANC. So going through these, I was expecting me to find things that I could find fault with, but they're minimal. I was surprised literally by everything outside of the sound. Like I was surprised that the mics were so good, that they sounded natural, that they extended into the transparency when other people were talking to you, how natural it sounded, and even into the ANC where it was able to block out sounds so well, isolate out voices, isolate out like racket. Like I was not expecting that from Focal because they're focused on sound, not features. However, when picking up these Sonys from Sumika, the XM4s, they outclass them in everything. They outclass them in sound. They outclass them in microphones. They outclass them in ANC. These things cannot isolate out voices as well as the Bathys. And I know I didn't show that in the review because there was supposed to be another review after this. I was going to do the XM5s versus the Bathys to show the kind of travel prowess of each. But I thought Sumika had the 5s. She has the 4s. So I'll shoot a short on this just to talk about this a little bit more. But maybe if I pick up the 5s, I can actually get that review done. But again, super surprised that this audiophile company was able to knock out the features as well as the sound. And I'm not going to say that they're perfect, right? They do have some issues with identification of the controls. I would love if that was better. They don't have a passive mode. Like it has to be in transparency or ANC. You can't just have it all off. I think that would be extremely nice as well. And then the leakage. The sound leakage is probably the worst part. I think that's the thing that annoys my friends the most in terms of people who tried it. It's just a lot of leakage. Like at 50%, people will be able to hear your music, and that's just not the greatest thing. But for you, it won't matter. But for people around you, it might matter. So maybe not the greatest for work, but overall, I mean, these are great. So so good. Why am I not keeping these? Because I'm not keeping these, unfortunately. It's because they're cheaper. So I bought these for around $720. On Amazon right now, they're going for $650. So I'm not keeping these because I'm gonna return them and get the cheaper price. So if you guys are interested in these, definitely check out Amazon. They are going much cheaper, as well as they're like 2-day shipping. It's not like something I got to wait half a month for. So awesome to do that. Also, if you're wondering why I'm holding up the box instead of actually showing you the headphones, it's because Samika's in the other room testing out the DAC mode and starting the next review, which again was supposed to be these guys in the XM5 version, but we're switching it up. We're gonna go with something even more expensive. The Dolly IO 12s. $1,300. Like, holy crap, these are expensive. They're much bigger. They are a much different aesthetic. They're a much different a lot of things in terms of how they're approaching premium headphones. But it's worth a shot. If I like them, I'll keep them. If not, the Bathys are going to be a great option. But that'll be the next review. Is probably going to be the Dalis. And then I'll do a side-by-side comparison to see which one I end up keeping at the end of the day. But hope you guys like this review. I had a lot of fun shooting this one. And I got a big chunk of credit card debt right now, so I'm really going to try to get these reviews out as fast as possible to you so that I can get these things returned and only keep the thing that I need. But if you could, please comment, like, subscribe, and do all the things you normally do on a video that you like and love. And as always, I appreciate you. See you super soon, because I'm going to be in debt if otherwise.